where are we now, and how is the government shutdown going to affect things?
I think that these proposals are probably on ice for the time being. The big news out of HUD yesterday related to the shutdown was there was a massive banner across the HUD webpage that was basically blaming the shutdown on Democrats. I think that something that other federal agencies have been putting out as well, that sort of messaging. But they talked about introducing these requirements in the last Trump administration. They never got around to it. But I think the fact that they already have rules drafted this early in the second Trump administration indicates that they're serious about putting this through. And I just want to mention the second rule as well, because we haven't touched on it, which is targeting basically immigrant households receiving federal housing assistance. These are so-called mixed status families in which some members of the household are in the country legally and eligible for assistance, and others are not, either because they're undocumented or they have some other immigration status that makes them ineligible for benefits. HUD wants to kick all of those households out of federally assisted housing. So the way it's worked so far is that the government has allowed those people to be supported by federal housing programs, but it prorates the subsidy they receive so that the government is not actually providing any financial assistance to the undocumented family members. But now HUD is saying, no, we want all of those people to leave. And so under this other rule, those 20,000 families would likely be kicked out. 16,000 of those families are families with kids. So that's who this would be affecting. And as part of that rule, HUD also wants to require that anyone who applies for or receives housing assistance, anyone in public housing or Section 8, if they're a citizen, they have to prove it. So they have to either provide a birth certificate or a passport to show that they're actually citizens. And sort of to your point, Sam, earlier about the administrative costs of all this, it's going to create this massive bureaucracy and kind of red tape around housing assistance that experts who I spoke to think is going to result in a lot of people just being kicked off of their benefits simply because they don't have a birth certificate, or they don't have time to go get one or whatever, or it's going to create these massive administrative overhead costs for these public housing authorities who suddenly, are like the passport checkers of the whole federal housing program. So that's the other rule that's also in the works right now.
And this is all in the shadow of the Faircloth Amendment, which I still think does not get enough attention. The idea that we have had a cap on the construction of federal public housing since 1998 or 1999 or whatever, since it's been passed, these are, it's already a threadbare system, whether it's public housing or, Section 8 or what you're talking about, or the subsidization for some of these other privately held units and living spaces. There's just not enough public housing as there is, let alone what we're seeing in terms of them trying to kick people out based on racist and xenophobic ends explicitly with the immigration piece.
Yeah, and I think what's worth noting here as well is what its overall picture for housing is. I mean, if you look at the Trump budget proposal, they want to cut public housing, Section 8, these rental assistance programs by nearly 50%. They want to turn these programs into block grants, basically just hand them over to the states and say, you deal with it. So, their ambition is to dramatically curtail the federal government's efforts to help poor people afford housing.
And just to be clear, if I am a single mother of two, my children were born here in the United States. They are American citizens because we still have birthright citizenship in this country. I am undocumented, or my visa has expired, or I am still, at this point, people are getting deported even if they have documents and are in the process of applying for citizenship or applying for a green card or applying for any other type of visa. So I don't even want to say undocumented necessarily. The federal government gives me not three portions essentially of Section 8 funding, but two for the three of us. So we either have to live in a smaller apartment than would be called for an individual with two kids, or we subsidize it in some fashion. Everybody gets kicked out under this Trump proposal. These kids are essentially made unhoused.
That's right. And what's interesting about that is because the government isn't subsidizing everyone in those mixed households, those households actually pay more. And so by enacting this proposal of kicking out all the immigrant mixed households and replacing them with fully eligible households, it's going to cost the federal government like an additional hundreds of millions of dollars every year to provide federal housing assistance. So, for a government that is reportedly obsessed with cutting costs, this is actually going to dramatically increase costs for this administration.
Yeah, I mean, this is really just a way of cutting out this program and using, again, immigrants as the sort of like a selling tool. I mean, we're seeing this right now with the whole government shutdown.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly of a piece with, everything the administration is doing, on the issue of immigration and, and everything the administration has been doing in the housing space on immigration. I mean, HUD and DHS in March announced a data sharing agreement targeting mixed status households. Recently, the Washington Examiner, the right-wing news outlet, reported based on HUD sourcing, apparently, that HUD wants to demand that every public housing authority, there's like 3,000 of them across the country, identify all of the mixed households to it. So, there's been this sort of broad effort to identify all these families and so that it can kick them out.
Do we know if ICE has been sort of like ramping up its enforcement using the data they're getting from HUD?
I looked into that a few months ago and spoke to public housing authorities across the country, and none of them really described any uptick in ICE activity, at their, housing estates. I think it's maybe more of a practical issue than an ideological one. These mixed families, they're kind of scattered across the country. I mean, most of them are in California, Texas, and New York, but, within New York, there might be a handful here, a handful there. And so it's not really as efficient as, posting up an immigration court, for example, where that people who are coming through are going to, potentially have, immigration issues. There's also an issue of, if you're trying to enter someone's private apartment, they technically need to give you permission in order for you to be able to enter, unless you have a certain type of warrant. So it's much easier to nab undocumented people in public space, which is why I think we haven't seen large-scale raids in public housing yet.
Jesse Coburn, reporter at ProPublica, covering housing, transportation, cities, and infrastructure. We're going to link to your pieces on this HUD memo, and really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.